I never thought my life would feel like a cheap soap opera. Until Thanksgiving. It all started with the clinking of glasses and the smell of roasted turkey drifting through the living room. The table was covered in an earthy brown cloth, filled with traditional dishes. Our entire extended family had gathered at my parents' house in Portland. Aunt Carol brought her pumpkin pie. My cousin Luke was loudly cracking jokes at the head of the table, and me? I just sat quietly, like I did every year. No one asked if I needed help. No one asked how work was going. They never really cared. I was cutting up mashed potatoes for my niece Ellie when a too familiar voice rang out, sharp enough to freeze the room. Before we carved the turkey, I have something to say. My sister Vanessa stood up, flashing a smile that was sickeningly sweet. Her hair was meticulously curled, her nails painted blood red, her tone crisp and rehearsed like she'd practiced it in front of a mirror for hours. Everyone looked up, forks suspended in midair. I held my breath. "I think it's time we were all honest with each other," she said, glancing around the room like a pageant queen about to announce a winner. "Last week, we took a vote." My father cleared his throat. My mother set her wine glass down, visibly eager. "And the result?" Vanessa paused, inhaling dramatically before turning to me. "Layla, we've decided. You are no longer part of this family." The room went still. I thought I misheard. But then the worst thing happened. The table applauded. Applause. Real applause. Aunt Carol whistled softly. Luke raised his glass like he was toasting. "And my mother?" She burst out laughing like it was the funniest joke of the night. "Finally, someone said it," she commented, casually, like noting the weather. I looked at my father. He didn't turn to me, just shook his head slightly and murmured, "Maybe this is for the best." I sat frozen, my hand gripping the edge of the tablecloth. The turkey on my plate was still steaming, but I felt ice cold. My throat tightened, not from sadness, but fury. Slowly, I pushed my chair back and stood up in the smug silence. "You actually planned this?" Vanessa smiled, unmistakably victorious. "You've always been a thorn in everyone's side, always so cold, distant, acting like you're better than us." I didn't respond, just nodded slowly, then bent down and picked up my purse. "I guess, if I'm no longer family, then these won't be necessary." I placed a thick folder on the table. The sound it made was soft, but it sliced through the tension like a blade. Vanessa flinched. "What's this?" I crossed my arms, leaned back, and locked eyes with her. "Why don't you take a look?" The moment she flipped the first page, I saw it. That instant when her smile shattered like glass hitting tile. Her face turned pale. Her hands trembled as she turned to the next page. Then she shrieked, a sharp sound that made little Ellie burst into tears. Everyone stood up. Joel, Vanessa's husband, snatched the folder. Seconds later, he turned to me, his face drained of color. Is this real?" I nodded. Every number, every message, every lie. The holiday table became a silent battleground. Vanessa stood frozen, eyes still processing what she had read. The folder lay open, several pages now scattered on the floor from her shaking hands. No one said a word. The ticking wall clock and Ellie's sniffles on Aunt Carol's lap were the only sounds left. How did you get all of this?" Vanessa's voice cracked. I stepped toward the table, my voice steady, calmer than I expected. "Because I knew one day you'd do something you couldn't take back." Joel picked up one of the fallen pages. It showed a screenshot of a bank transfer. $2,800. From my account into one under Vanessa's name, right after she tearfully claimed Joel had lost his job. "And this?" Joel asked, voice low but sharp. 3 nights at the Grand Hill Hotel, charged to my card, booked under Alyssa Green? Vanessa opened her mouth but couldn't form words. My mother tried to interject, but I raised my hand. I'm not done. I bent down, pulled out another set of papers, and slid them toward my father. These are for you. A full breakdown of everything I paid for your hospital bills after your fall last year. Itemized. Receipts included. My father stared at the papers, his face unreadable, but his hand trembled slightly on the table. Then I turned to my mother. And here's a screenshot of your bank transaction from March 14th, $2,200. I wired you to cover urgent credit card debt. My mother jumped in, defensive. Why are you bringing this up now? We're family. That money was given out of love. What kind of love mocks me, excludes me, and then votes me off the dinner table? I cut her off, eyes locked. Not one of you ever apologized. None of you ever considered paying back a single dollar. I looked around the room. You want me silent. You want me compliant, because I'm single, childless, and never complain. To you, I've been nothing but a walking wallet. Luke spoke up, weakly. Layla, maybe we shouldn't have clapped. We just didn't realize it was this serious. I turned to him, calm but razor sharp. You clapped when I was kicked out of the family. You laughed when Vanessa insulted me in front of Ellie. You were silent every year I supported everyone, so don't pretend to be innocent now. No one said a word. I pulled out my phone, opened a voice recording, and hit play. Vanessa's voice echoed clearly. She always acts so righteous. Cut the money and watch her fall apart. No one loves her. No one misses her. Followed by my mother's laughter. I stopped the recording, placed the phone on the table. Vanessa turned pale. You were spying on me? No. But you accidentally sent that recording to Laura while gossiping and she forwarded it to me. I kept it. Like I always do. Because I don't forget. I turned to my father. You saw everything, heard everything. He looked down, silent. Vanessa clenched her fists, hissing. You're scary, Layla. Who hoards this much like a paranoid freak? I stepped closer, eyes locked on hers. Someone who's been betrayed too many times learns to remember and prepare. Joel flipped to the final page, a financial summary showing how much I had given to each person over the last 6 years. $64,500. He looked at me, hesitant. You kept all this? Because you knew a day like this would come? I nodded. I hoped it wouldn't, but I'd prepared. Because people who truly love each other don't hold a vote to kick someone out of the family dinner. I returned to my seat, picked up my coat, and slowly slipped my arms through. I didn't ruin your dinner. I just finally showed up, this time with the truth. And as I turned to leave, I heard Joel quietly ask, Vanessa, who is Alyssa? But I didn't need to look back. I walked slowly toward the door, thinking I had made it far enough. But then I heard Joel call out softly, Layla, I need to know more. Everything in that folder, is it all true? I stopped, my hand on the doorknob, my back still facing them. You want details? Fine. Let me walk you through it. I turned around, walked back to the table, gently took the folder Joel was still holding, and laid it open in front of everyone. I flipped a page, each line highlighted, with screenshots of transfers, confirmation emails, and texts asking for money, ranging in tone from sweet to entitled. The total is $81,200 over 5 years, I said, my voice steady, not bitter. In that, $9,000 for Vanessa and Joel to open a nail salon that shut down after 4 months. $5,600 for a new car for Dad because his old one couldn't make it to work anymore. $3,200 for Mom when she said her credit card was hacked, and then she posted check-in photos at a Tahoe resort. My mother's eye twitched, but she stayed silent. Luke won 8 and 8 to retake an accounting course because he had bad luck. And here, I pointed to the next page, $11,400 in medical bills for Ellie when Joel said their insurance was temporarily paused. Later, I found out he'd just forgotten to pay the premium. Luke looked down. Joel turned red and looked away. And this part. I continued, flipping to a page with messenger screenshots. Vanessa sent this to cousin Laura. She's basically a walking ATM. No kids, no husband, no purpose except making money to prove she's not a failure. I turned to Vanessa. You sent that to someone who once borrowed $2,000 from me for tuition? She forwarded it to me, and I kept it. The room fell completely silent. The ceiling light flickered, as if it, too, couldn't bear the truth being peeled back. Dad, I said, looking at him, remember last April, you called me late at night and said Mom urgently needed $2,500 for heart testing? He nodded slightly. At that same time, I said, pulling out another invoice and setting it on the table, she was booked at the Fairmont Sonoma for a 3-night wellness spa stay, paid for with the same card I had just wired money to. My mother jumped up. You're twisting things. I was under so much stress I needed a break. And I needed dignity, I replied. But that never seemed to matter. Tempted of it. I flipped to the last page of the folder. It was a summary table. Amount, dates, recipients, reasons, repayment status. The repaid column, all marked no. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just stood there, in front of people who once called themselves my family, and let them face what they had refused to see. You call me cold, emotionless, but the truth is, I'm the one who kept this house burning for 5 straight years, while the rest of you only added weight and judgment. Vanessa squinted. You kept all this? To get revenge? No, I answered. I kept it because I had hope. That someday, someone would realize how much I had done. That love isn't just something that exists when I'm footing the bill. I looked around the room. But today, when you stood up and proudly declared you voted me out, I knew that hope is gone. Joel nodded slowly, for the first time not looking at Vanessa but at me. Zach, thank you for helping me see everything clearly. I picked up the folder, folded it neatly, and slipped it into my bag. Now I've made my decision too. My mother's voice trembled. Layla, you can't do this. I stepped backward toward the door, my final glance no longer angry, just empty. I'm not doing anything. I'm just done letting people hurt me. Joel still held the folder in his hands, his eyes fixed on a page folded at the corner. He slowly unfolded it, and as he reached the 3rd line, his brows furrowed. Vanessa, he said, barely audible. Who is Alyssa Green? No one moved. Vanessa froze, her eyes darting between Joel, me, and then to Mom. Why, is her name on the hotel bill? Joel asked, louder, gripping the paper until it crumpled. It's a misunderstanding, Vanessa stammered. Just an old classmate. We went on a wellness trip, you know that. 3 nights at Emerald Coast Hotel, double room, champagne, 2-person spa package? Joel cut in, each word sharp as a blade. Vanessa said nothing. I pulled another printout from my coat pocket and handed it to Joel. This is a screenshot of Alyssa's Instagram story from that week. The room matches the hotel's promo. Same bed sheets, same balcony view, matching white robes. And this, I swiped my phone screen, is a message Vanessa sent Alyssa. I found it on a shared iCloud device. I hadn't planned to do this. But when they tried to erase me like I never existed, I had to remind them. I wasn't blind. Joel skimmed through it, then froze at one message. Joel won't find out. He's too busy running the shop. You're the one I want next to me. The room felt thick. Luke put down his fork, not noticing the gravy dripping on his shirt. My mother opened her mouth, then closed it again. So this is what you were doing while telling me I wasn't emotionally supportive enough? Joel asked, still staring at Vanessa. Vanessa's voice cracked. You're misunderstanding. Misunderstanding what? That you used my card to book a hotel and wrote these words? Joel held up the printout, trembling so hard it almost tore. You called Layla a controlling freak. when the only one controlling everything is you. Joel, I just felt alone. You were always away, and You chose betrayal, he shouted, his voice finally rising above everyone else's. And you had the nerve to insult the one person here who stood by you. Vanessa went pale. I stood still. No smirk, no gloating, just sadness. Because this unfolded exactly as I feared. When the truth stays buried too long, its revelation doesn't just hurt. It brings everything else down with it. My mother stood, approaching Joel, her voice trembling. This shouldn't have come out at the dinner table. I looked at her calmly. And when you laughed as they declared I was voted out, that wasn't inappropriate? You don't understand, Layla. She tried to steady her voice. Everyone was under pressure, and I'm the only one who's not allowed to react? I asked. All these years, I stayed quiet, sent money, obeyed, tolerated. But the one time I speak up, I'm the problem? My father stayed silent. He always did. Not once had he defended me, even with just a glance. Joel sank into his chair, clutching his head. I don't know who I can trust anymore. I looked at him, my voice softening. You still have yourself. That's the first thing I had to learn too. The room fell quiet. But this time it wasn't cold silence. It was the silence of people finally realizing truth can't stay buried forever. Vanessa turned to me, eyes blazing. You just wanted to destroy this family, didn't you? You're happy to see us fall apart, aren't you? I shook my head slowly. No. I'm just tired of always being the one patching up the damage you all caused. I walked toward the door, again, but this time, no one stopped me. And behind me, I heard Joel flip another page in the folder. Vanessa, what about the apartment in Austin? He asked softly, but loud enough for the entire room. I didn't need to stay to hear her answer, because I knew, from now on, they're the ones who have to face everything they buried for so long. I didn't look back. My hand touched the doorknob, but something made me pause. Not regret. Just one last thing I had put off for far too long. I opened my bag and pulled out a large cream-colored envelope. Nothing was written on it except for a small note in the corner. The day has come. I turned back to the table, my expression no longer angry, just resolute. And this, I said, placing the envelope at the center of the table. So you won't need to call, text, or write me asking for help. Ever again. My mother frowned. Layla, what is this? Read it. Joel picked it up, pulled out the stack inside. I saw his expression change within seconds. He flipped through the pages quickly, then looked at me. Stunned. You already signed everything? I nodded. I've officially revoked all legal authority tied to anyone in this family, from financial power of attorney to emergency medical contact. Everything. I turned to my mother. I'm no longer listed on your medical forms. I'm no longer the one the hospital calls if you're admitted. I'm no longer the guarantor if something happens to Dad. She shot up from her seat. What are you saying? That's your right and responsibility as a family member. No, I said calmly. It used to be my responsibility. Back when I believed I was still part of this family, but you all voted, remember? I'm not family anymore. Luke stood up, his voice uneasy. Layla, you're going too far. I let out a faint smile. I'm just doing what you all always wanted. Making things clear. No ties, no obligations. I turned to my father, who had been sitting there like a statue the whole time. You once said I worked like a machine, emotionless. But did you ever wonder why? Because you taught me that the moment I paused or showed weakness, no one would protect me. He didn't respond. Just stared into the now cold glass of water in front of him, as if retreating from reality. But you can't do this. My mother's voice trembled. You're my daughter. No matter what, family is still family. I shook my head, my eyes steady and eerily calm. No, Mom. Family is where people protect each other, not where they hold secret votes to exile someone, then applaud it. Family doesn't put conditions on love. Family doesn't treat one of their own like a backup bank. Vanessa had been silent the whole time, but now she stood abruptly and pointed at me. You act all righteous, but you're just trying to control everything. You like having the power, don't you? I looked straight at her. Wrong, Vanessa. I'm reclaiming my freedom. My right to live without being dragged into a cycle of demands, pretenses, and lies. Joel spoke up quietly, as if he was the last one finally waking up. So, from now on, you're no longer involved with them at all? I nodded. Officially, on paper, and in my heart. I picked up my coat and headed for the door again. This time, no one said anything. No one stopped me. Not a single word to keep me there. I opened the door and stepped outside. The early winter wind in Portland stung my cheeks, but I didn't flinch. For the first time in years, I carried no weight on my shoulders. I walked across the front yard, my shoes sinking slightly into the damp grass after the rain. The wind rustled the maple tree on the porch like the house itself was sighing, finally witnessing someone choosing to leave instead of sitting through more of the same. And when I got into my car and closed the door, I looked into the rearview mirror. The house I once called home now looked like nothing more than a shell, pretty on the outside, rotten within. I fastened my seatbelt, started the engine, and didn't look back. 2 days after Thanksgiving night, my phone started buzzing non-stop. The first message was from my mother. You can walk away, but you'll always be my daughter. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. We can work things out if you just open your heart. I didn't respond. I didn't delete it either, I just left it there, as proof of a familiar pattern. When they need something, I suddenly become my precious daughter again. That afternoon, I got a call from an unknown number. No name, no label. Something told me not to pick up, but curiosity won. Is Layla? A man's voice came through, slightly rushed. This is Ben, Joel's attorney. He asked me to inform you that you are the primary witness if his divorce from Vanessa proceeds to court. I paused. He actually filed? This morning, Ben replied. He submitted the entire folder of documents you left behind. I ended the call and stood motionless in my living room. The light was still on from the night before. A photo of me and little Ellie from our hiking trip 3 years ago sat on the TV stand. That day, Vanessa had been away on a weekend spa, so I took Ellie instead. She smiled the whole ride back. Now, I wonder, was it ever really a weekend spa or just another cover? That evening, I received a text from Luke. Layla, I didn't know things were that bad. I'm sorry for not speaking up. I was scared. But I know you were the only one who ever truly helped this family. Underneath was a smaller, more hesitant line. Our cousin just lost his job. Any chance you could help cover his rent for a few months? Locked my screen. My heart didn't ache like it used to. Just a dull exhaustion. Strangely, the silence no longer scared me. It had become a shield, protecting me from apologies with strings attached. On the 4th day, Natalie sent an email. Yes, my sister, using strangely formal language for the first time in years. Layla, regardless of what happened between us, I hope you remember that others are affected too. Joel left the house. Ellie keeps asking where he is. Mom cries all day. I'm not asking for anything. Just hoping you can reassure the family. They won't survive if you keep ignoring them. And then a small PS at the bottom. Mom's having issues with the mortgage. The bank requires a co-signer to avoid foreclosure. I closed the email. Didn't reread it. I've learned this. A real apology doesn't come with a request. On the 5th day, I received a voicemail from my father. I never saved his number, but that dry, gravelly voice was unmistakable. Layla, you've gone too far. Your mother can't sleep. Vanessa's in a panic. You should come back, talk like an adult. Don't let a small thing turn you into a stranger. Small thing, $78,000? Being voted out of the family. Balda walking, being betrayed, insulted, used, and dismissed as a small thing. I didn't reply. But I didn't delete it either. I kept everything, just like they keep convincing themselves I was wrong simply for walking away. The following week, I received a handwritten letter. No return address, but I recognized my mother's handwriting. 3 pages, blue ink, written with desperation. Page 1 was apologies, repeating she never meant to hurt me. Page 2 was updates. Dad's back problems flaring up again. Vanessa left by Joel. Ellie crying for me every night. Page 3 was the offer. If I helped cover the remaining mortgage, they'd transfer the house title to my name, so you can feel secure that your money isn't being wasted. I set the letter on the table, stood up, walked straight to the trash bin, opened the lid, and dropped it in without blinking. I finally understood. They don't want me back. They want the old version of me back, the one who smiled, said okay to everything, fulfilled every request without ever asking why. But she's gone. She no longer exists. It moved out on a Monday morning, crisp and cold, sunlight spilling through the windows of my old apartment. No one knew. No one saw me off. No goodbyes. And for the first time, I felt truly at peace. The new city isn't far, about a 3-hour drive from Portland, near a lakeside town in Washington. I didn't choose it for the scenery, but because no one here knows who I am. No one calls me Layla when they need money. No one texts me at midnight with emergencies followed by bank details. The new apartment is smaller but warm. Wooden beams, big windows that catch the morning light, and a cozy kitchen where I brew my own coffee instead of rushing out with a latte. I started over. Not bitter, just quietly relieved. My old job had drained me. An executive finance role with a 6-figure salary, but it came at the cost of sleepless nights and a life eroded by silent expectations. I resigned, as decisively as pulling a long-lodged knife from my chest. Now I work part-time as a financial advisor for a nonprofit that supports single women. No sales quotas, no 11 p.m. emails, no one asking, "Can you cover just one more thing?" Just real people with real stories. And me, for the first time in years, feeling useful, not used. I started therapy, not because I broke down, but because I wanted to understand myself better. My therapist, Dr. Allison, has gentle eyes and a calm presence that made it easier than I expected to say, I used to think if I stopped helping, I had no worth. I started jogging every morning. Each step felt like shedding another layer of pressure. I learned to cook, baking for the first time, from a recipe I'd bookmarked and ignored for years. I lit candles, not to cover the musty smell of an old apartment, but because I loved the scent. One day, I ran into Ava, an old college friend who drifted away because I was always tied up with family. She'd seen my name in an article about rebuilding after toxic relationships. We met for afternoon tea, and I didn't expect to laugh that much during a first catch-up after years apart. Layla, Eva said as we stepped out of the cafe, you're still kind, but now you know who deserves that kindness. I went home, turned on my computer, and updated my entire emergency contact list. No more Mom, no more Vanessa. I added Eva, not because she needed me, but because I knew she'd show up if I truly needed someone. One Saturday afternoon, while rearranging books on my shelf, I found an old photo. Me and Ellie, hand in hand on top of a small hill, the wind tossing her hair. I gently touched the frame, a sharp ache in my chest. I still remembered that little girl. I just couldn't remember who her mother used to be, before she became a stranger. I placed the photo into a wooden box and locked it. Not to forget it, but to preserve it, a part of memory that didn't need erasing. but didn't need to haunt me either. No more surprise texts, no more midnight calls, no more bills marked urgent, no more sinking feeling every time the phone buzzed. And strangely, in that silence, I heard my own voice, clearer than ever. I didn't lose my family. I only lost the people who pretended to be one. Now, I live, not to serve anyone, not to prove anything, but simply to be myself. And for the first time in years, when I looked in the mirror, I saw a woman who no longer strained to preserve a version of family that never truly existed. That Christmas fell on a snow-white day. I spent it alone in my new apartment, the fireplace casting a soft golden glow. No tree, no festive music, but also no sighs from my mother, no judging glances from Vanessa, no urgent calls from Dad claiming his car just died on the freeway. I drank hot cocoa, read an old novel, and, for the first time in years, I didn't feel lonely. I felt peaceful. On the morning of December 26, I found a handwritten letter in the communal mailbox. No return name, but I knew the neat, round handwriting like a dull knife across an old scar. It was from my mother. I didn't open it right away. I left it on the table for 3 days, under the warm lamp beside the sofa, as a test of my resolve. Then, on New Year's Eve, I opened it. Layla. The first page was sickly sweet. She wrote that she couldn't stop thinking about me, that this year's Christmas felt cruelly cold without me at the table, without anyone to slice the pumpkin pie just the way Dad liked it. The second page shifted tone. Vanessa's really struggling, sweetheart. Joel finalized the divorce. The bank has sent notice to seize their apartment. Ellie's affected. She misses Aunt Layla. She doesn't understand why you disappeared like that. The final page turned into a plea. Your father's health is declining. I just took him for an MRI and the results weren't good. We need a little help to cover what the insurance didn't. I hate to bring up money, but you're the only one still standing strong in this family. I folded the letter without a word. Just sat there, listening to the ticking clock and the distant crackle of fireworks. Oh. On New Year's Day, I got a message from Luke. Happy New Year, Layla. No matter what, I hope you're healthy and doing well. By the way, Vanessa asked if you know anyone renting a 2-bedroom apartment. Cheap would be fine. You know she's going through a tough time. I didn't reply. By mid-January, another envelope arrived, this time from Dad. The handwriting was slanted, sharp. Layla. No greeting, no well wishes, just straight to the point. We're refinancing the house. Your mother tried negotiating, but the bank needs a cosigner. If you agree, you'd only need to sign, no payments required. We'll keep the house and no one will have to move. Please. At the bottom, he added, no matter what, you're still blood. Don't let anger lead to something irreversible. I folded the letter and placed it beside my mother's. Didn't tear it, didn't toss it, just left it there. On Valentine's Day, I received a box with no sender. Inside was a candle, the exact scent I used to buy myself every year. A small card accompanied it. Aunt Layla, I miss the smell of your room. Do you still use candles? I know you're mad at Mom and Grandma, but I still remember you. I still want your pancakes again. Louis. I sat for an hour, the candle unlit, the card untouched. My eyes locked on the handwriting of an 8-year-old who couldn't understand grown-up pain. I loved Ellie. I had never said it out loud, but I loved her with the kind of tenderness I never dared give myself. But I also knew this. I couldn't soften my heart for a child only to be dragged back into an old loop, where every emotion became leverage, where every act of care turned into a financial burden. They weren't remorseful. They were short on money. And short on me, the version who nodded, wired funds, and smiled through being labeled different. I wasn't that person anymore. I didn't hate them, but I had stopped trying to be loved by people who saw kinship as emotionalized debt collection. I picked up the candle, turned it gently in my hands, then placed it back in the box, sealed it, and mailed it to the old address, along with a note. I still use candles, but I don't live in the dark anymore. In March, I got a call from an unknown number while watering my balcony plants. I let it ring until the end, then silenced it. Not because I was afraid, because I no longer felt obligated to listen. That afternoon, I took my usual walk around Cedar Lake. The sky was pale blue, the breeze cool, and the water mirrored a sky untouched by clouds. A group of children played at the hill's edge, their laughter ringing like the childhood I thought I never had. I sat on my usual bench beside an elderly woman knitting with silver hair. She nodded at me, then looked out over the lake. "I see you sitting here often," she said, her voice low and warm. "Looks like you're learning how to breathe again." I laughed. Yeah, I used to think I was breathing fine. Turns out, I was just holding my breath for years, trying to be who others wanted. She didn't ask anything more. She didn't need to. She simply nodded. "Then keep that air. Don't let anyone steal it again." I didn't need strangers to understand my story. Sometimes a warm gaze is healing enough. And I knew I was nearing the end of one journey and the beginning of a brand new chapter. A few weeks later, I received an invitation to speak at a small seminar on mental health and financial independence for women. The organizer had read my anonymous essay online, the one I thought no one would care about. But it turned out, truth spreads further than I imagined. I accepted. The talk was held in a small library hall. No stage lights, no fancy chairs. Just around 30 women, some with babies in arms, some with notebooks, listening intently as I shared my story, the forgotten transfers, the fake hugs under dinner tables, and the scariest decision of my life, leaving people I shared DNA with, just to save myself. When I finished, a young woman stood up, her eyes glossy. "I thought I was the only one who ever felt like this," she said. "Thank you for saying out loud what I never dared to." I stepped down and hugged her, and for the first time I understood what it meant to give without being taken from. That night, I walked home past the little bakery where the owner remembered my favorite pastry after just one visit. I picked up a slice of cinnamon apple pie, then strolled down the short street to my apartment. The late spring breeze carried hints of flowers and soft acoustic music from the cafe on the corner. I opened the door, flipped on the lights, and the room filled with peace. No phone ringing with demands, no emails marked urgent. No one blaming me for changing. I sat on the floor beside my new bookshelf where I'd neatly stored the old letters in a tin box. I didn't burn them, didn't throw them out. I kept them the way people keep relics, not to remember, but to never return. I used to think freedom meant being accepted by family. Now I know. True freedom is walking away from people who only call you family when they need saving. I no longer live to please others. I live to feel peace when I rest my head each night, without any unsaid apologies or unpaid debts. I live to laugh loudly when I want, cry quietly when I need, and breathe deep and long without fearing abandonment. I live not to prove anything anymore. I live because I deserve to. Fully. And if you ask whether I regret it, I say, I only regret not letting go sooner. Layla's story is a powerful reminder that blood ties are not an excuse to exploit, belittle, or use someone as a means to an end. Sometimes true freedom doesn't come from holding on to family, but from having the courage to walk away from those who only wear that label. Layla didn't choose to be cold. She chose to be kind to herself. And the moment she set her boundaries, she began living a life that was finally hers, peaceful, meaningful, and unapologetically free. What do you think about Layla's choice? Was she too firm, or was it the only way to protect her peace? Share your thoughts below. And don't forget to follow the channel for more powerful family stories.